YouTube. Vince here from Eagle Auto Repair, and today we have a 2010 Dodge Caravan in the shop. Has a bad wheel bearing, so left front driver's side. We've previously diagnosed it. We're going to get to that. A couple different ways you can do that as you move the vehicle when you're test driving it from side to side in the lane. What happens is as it loads up the weight of the vehicle, it changes the tone. And so you pitch the car side to side. You want to be in a safe area about 35-40 miles an hour when it comes in, and you can hear the tone change. That's a pretty good way to isolate it. We also use an electronic chassis ears sometimes. I like the best way if I can get the car on the hoist and have someone help me get up in the vehicle, put them up in the air, put it in gear, roll the wheels, and put my stethoscope near the bearing, and that will definitely let you pinpoint and be exactly sure which side you're at. So sealed wheel bearing assemblies has the anti-lock brake sensor incorporated into the bearing, so we're going to replace that. You can also get a rear, so basically the same setup in the late model vehicles on all four wheels. Some of these styles are pressed in. This particular vehicle has this style, the hub assembly, bearing, and the ABS sensor all incorporated into one unit. It's bolted into the knuckle, which is aluminum right here, and the strut lower control arm connects to that tie rod. So we're going to go through the process and go ahead and get this apart real quick and have you get a peek in there and let you look and see what it's all about. So makes a droning, often characterized as a kind of an airplane or a whirring noise is what the customer will usually complain about. So verify the concern, find out which bearing it is, and then we're going to go about replacing it. We're going to get this axle nut off first. That's the first order of business. Alright, so we have the axle nut off. We also have the ABS sensor incorporated here, so we're going to get that loose. We've got a couple different connectors here that just kind of go into a bracket. Then it wraps up around right here, and there's a connector right back in here. So again, once you get that connector loose, that ABS sensor, the female end has the connector lock on it. The male pins, we'll have to check these to make sure these little rubbers are in the same spot, so it'll go back into the retaining holes. We're going to get the caliper off, the rotor off. We're going to move the axle, drive the axle back out. Once we move the axle back a little bit, we can take the retaining bolts out for the wheel bearing assembly. And then I always like to, I use an air hammer with this kind of a bit on it, kind of a rounded tip bit to drive that bearing around. Again, here in the northern states, we're in Michigan, it's a corrosive environment, so you have a steel bearing assembly, aluminum knuckle. We get some oxidization. A lot of guys will use a hammer and or try a puller. I find the most effective, easiest way is to use the air hammer. As I get older, you know, it's the old adage, you want to work smarter, not harder. And for me, it tends to, you know, wear on the elbows when I'm swinging a heavy hammer a lot. So I'll leave that to the young guys. And that's a good tip, though, I can give you, is that air hammer will save a lot. Really a great time saver. And it's not really the blows or the impact that make it come loose, it's the vibration. So those good vibrations will allow that to release a little bit easier and save you some time. So always good practice to do that. But we're going to run these caliper mounting bolts through the knuckle out real quick, and we'll pull that off. I've got some mechanics wire here. I never like to hang a caliper on the brake hose. It's not a good practice, so we'll hang it up so it's out of the way. And let's get this off real quick. There's two of them, and these are these particular ones. So there's our caliper. And what we're going to do is we're going to take the mechanics wire, just kind of run it through the spring. That'll be our support area. And then we're going to take and run it through one of the mounting holes for the caliper. And this mechanics wire, you know, you can see it's all twisted up. I reuse it. I have a couple pieces in the box just specific for this particular process. A couple of twists like this. And there it is, up out of our way. And again, now we don't have to worry about you know, hanging the caliper on the brake hose and causing some pressure there. So a couple different bits. I also have a hammer bit for the air hammer that I like to use for the rotor. Again, good vibrations. I don't like to swing a hammer because if I hit this surface at all, it can damage it. And again, in a corrosive environment, probably not going to see this too much down south, but here, you know, we want to make sure we're using this style, a hammer bit in our, so we can hit the rotor on this surface and not do any damage to it. But again, usually just takes a couple little pops to get it loose, and that gives it that good vibration. Now our rotor's off. Set that down, and we're now exposed the bearing. So we've got that axle pushed back, which will allow us to use I like to use a half-inch drive snap-on, 6-point. These are 15 millimeters. Lets me reach back in there, still get on the bolt, have a good secure connection, and then use my impact to remove them. Quick, easy way. A lot of guys will do it by hand. They do have Loctite on those bolts, so I've often find that if you do want to do it by hand, if you put a little bit of a heat source to the bolt, it softens that Loctite, helps you get it out of there. But again, a little bit like that, you can see that run that bolt out of there. There's 4 of them, 2 on either side. So we're going to get these 2. And then we want to turn it around. We're going to turn the knuckle. So we want to take and get it over this way. And push that axle back. And that way we can access that other side pretty easily. Get the 2 on this side. Just kind of sneak in there with that universal socket. Works really well. Well, this one's a little tight. You do want to be careful. The CV joint is right in the back there, and it's got that clamp on it that holds it tight. You don't want to damage that, so you want to be careful that you don't push that CV boot off. But our axle's loose now. Now we're going to go ahead and just use the air hammer to get this good vibration going here, and that will allow that bearing to come right out of there. So we got our ABS loose, backing plate, knuckle, everything's going to stay there. We're just going to get it moving right here. So let's see what we got. All right, so we want to run these little 10 millimeters out. There's 3 of them, and that'll let us access that wire real easy. I can actually probably I just see it moved already. I can probably just loosen them up. Maybe take one out. Whatever's easiest. Getting at these with the bearing on there might be a little bit of less room, but we want to be able to let that connector come through there. And you can see that's what it looks like. So that's our old part. And you always want to Obviously match it up, make sure we got the right part going in. So you'll want to check your ABS connector. This one already has the little hold down part, but you see it's already has the little grommets, the rubber grommets, the attaching parts incorporated. They're usually in the right spot. I have found that the aftermarket sometimes you may have to slide that or move it a little bit. Factory parts generally a little bit closer, but not always. It's not a perfect situation. So, but you do want to check. One of the other things I like to make sure is, you know, are my studs the same? Are they in the correct orientation? Do we have the right length of studs? And then where it mounts in the back. And you can see the difference in the surface. So this surface, we have all that corrosion built up, and that's what's holding it in. And here's a brand new, you know, nice shiny machined polished surface. Makes a big difference. So, but in the area that I'm in a corrosive environment, you know, northern Rust Belt states, Michigan, Wisconsin, Minnesota, that area, Pennsylvania, where they use salt on the roads, it really has an adverse effect on the aluminum. It just oxidizes terrible. And then you've got the spline shaft for the axle that goes through that hub assembly. It can really be difficult to get it off. I worked on them from out-of-state cars. One time in Florida, you know, I worked on a Florida car, and the bearing literally jumped out of there as soon as I unbolted it. So quite a contrast in you know, areas. So in here, even just going a little bit north of here, a couple hundred miles north, it's a lot worse than where we're at down here, downstate. So, but yeah, we're going to get this put back in real quick and get it hooked up, and then continue on. Just want to move that through there like that, get it in the right spot. And then we're going to get it up on the spline. Kind of feed it in there. I don't kind of like the way that's sitting. We're going to take this bracket, this backing plate right off. It's just not allowing me to do what I want to do, so we'll just swing it down out of the way like that. Then we're in the right position. And we don't have to worry about cutting that wire at all or damaging that wire. So we're going to go ahead and get those bolts started. And again, you know, we've talked about this before. 4 bolts. We're going through aluminum and into a steel housing. You want to start them all by hand, make sure they're all started so that when they're in the right position, and that way we don't cross thread anything or have any issues in that regard. Alright, so get the backing plate back on now that we've got the bearing tight. And I thought I could cheat it out of there. It's best just to remove it, get it out of the way. Save you some time and aggravation. It's just the 3 little 10mm bolts that hold it onto the knuckle. Easy enough. Just to save you the aggravation. Alright, so now we can go ahead and get that turned. We want to remember our axle nut that will run down. We're going to put our rotor back on. And unwire our caliper that we've had hanging on the mechanics wire. Again, we want to make sure we don't damage that brake hose by just hanging that on there. So get our caliper retaining bolts in. just to hold it before we tighten it, because we don't want it to fall. Get the top one started. Let's get the bottom one in now. Another good tip, whenever you're compressing brake calipers, if you're replacing pads, make sure before you get in and throw it in gear that you pump the brakes up. Because what will happen is you'll forget, and I've seen people panic and actually drive into things because they didn't pump the brakes up. So this one we only did this side, wouldn't be a problem, but again, just kind of an FYI, you definitely want to make sure you have brake pedal. Push right in, everything's good, ABS sensor secure. We want to tighten these bolts down for our caliper. There is a torque setting for every bolt. You want to check service information. Again, for me, it's kind of a feel thing. I've been doing it for a long time. I know what works and what doesn't. And so that's the way I do it. Wheel lugs, preferred way to do it is to use a torque stick if you're going to use your impact. If not, put it on the ground and use a torque wrench, because you can bend rotors, which will cause brake vibration, and you don't want to have your customer unhappy because you created a brake vibration. So, but yeah, this vehicle has those new Michelin tires on it. The customer, when they bought it, it had some older tires. They kind of assumed all along that noise was due to the tires. We've done some other work on this vehicle in the past. They went to have some new tires. They have some real nice Michelin tires, really good tires. Michelin last one-piece construction in the industry, so they are by far worth the money. You do get the ride quality, and so that improved their ride quality, but also actually enhanced the noise, made it a little more defined. So then they came and said, "Hey Vince, we need to get this looked at. We've got this unusual droning noise going on." So like I said, I isolated the noise to the bearing, and we're going to get it buttoned up here and get the customer on their way. So again, I want to thank you for joining me here today for this wheel bearing procedure, and check out our other videos. If there's anything that I can help you with, I'll have my email address. I'll put my email address in the video so you can hit me up with questions, comments. Hit me in the comments section. Be real happy if you subscribe. Hopefully there'll be some information I can share with you. If there's something you'd like to see, let me know. I love doing the videos, and hopefully our content's getting better. So hit the subscribe, hit the like button, ring the bell, and we'll see you again. And as I always say, here at Eagle Auto Repair, have a blessed day.